To the analysis to impact session. We're talking about publishing and storytelling with your Earth Engine results. My name is Christian Adams. I'm on the Earth Outreach team. I work a lot with Google Earth, storytelling in Google Earth, do a bit of Maps API stuff as well, and some Earth Engine, so general developer relations. And
my name is Chris Herwig. I work on the Earth Engine team as well. I wear many hats and maintain a diverse suite of products and programs, including the Landsat used in Google Maps and Earth, Google Earth Timelapse, and a fancy new Google Earth and Earth Engine blog. And I work with journalists quite often using Earth Engine.
Cool.
And I don't ever actually wear hats.
So, why analysis to impact? Well, you've done your analysis, or you will once you get home from this conference. You've crunched all the datas, and your results are amazing. But what next? Does it actually make a difference? Does anybody care? Are the right people aware of your work? Can they use it? So the big question is, how can your work create real impact? And that's the end of my memes. So actually, one more here. Not really memes.
This one's technically my meme.
Yeah. So this is Earth Engine on the morning news.
On Good Morning America. Good
Morning America, nonetheless. The search for the wet prints of Bel Air, they used Earth Engine to analyze evapotranspiration data in Southern California and figure out which properties were using the most water during the drought.
And one of the lead investigators for this is currently at the User Summit and was here last year at the User Summit and learned some techniques.
Yes, he learned how to do
this.
What he did to do this. And
what did they do? Well, the most egregious user of water in drought-stricken California cut his water usage by 50% as a result, or coinciding with the publication of this.
We like to think that
prior
that was
to going public with it. Like they had let this water user know in advance, hey, based on our data, it looks like you're using this obscene amount of water. And then they started noticing in the Landsat images that the grass was brown.
So that is some pretty interesting impact.
11.8 million gallons of water, yeah.
Wow.
Which ET product?
What time step was that?
Yeah. Sorry, what?
Which ET product was that? The evapotranspiration?
Was it evapotranspiration?
No,
or
they did tasseled cap with Landsat.
Oh, yeah.
They have a
Something
good
else, sorry.
methodology post.
Yeah.
It's the Center for Investigative Journalism.
Cool. So, much more boring slides now. Generally, well, let me start by saying Chris and I have been sort of developing this this class this year. It's sort of the next generation after the class that we used to teach in this slot, which was sort of an overview of other Google mapping tools other than Earth Engine and how you might use them for publishing. We're trying to focus it more on real Earth Engine users and real Earth Engine data, and both thinking through the process you might go through to figure out how you want to get your results and your data out there, and how you want to publish it, and how you might have some impact. So we're developing this as we go. We would love any feedback as we go along or questions. Don't hesitate and help us turn this into a good session.
We intended for this to be participatory, but we did not structure it to be participatory. So we're trying to figure out how to make it more, because we think it should really reflect the specificities of your work and your specific field of study. So
cool. So some of the basic concepts around making an impact. You need the information to be accessible, and accessible to the right people, to the relevant people. They need to be able to find it, to understand it, and to use it. In order to be useful, you have to provide good locally relevant information and provide some insights. You want to be able to tell a story around your data. You don't want to just do a data dump, because most people aren't going to figure out what's interesting about it. If you can tell a story and point out the interesting bits, point out the, hey, look at this one, that's where you start to get people interested and start making things really useful. And as we go through this, you have to remember that most people are not Earth Engine users or remote sensing experts or even mapping people. So a big piece of this is knowing your audience and remembering that we need to interpret it for people. So who are the right people? Who is your audience? These are some of the big questions you need to ask yourself. What kind of impact do you want to have? What is your goal?
Let's really quickly go around the room and understand the industries and fields everyone's coming in. So if you were to put yourself into a bucket, like we can say like web mapping or commercial, that's what the bucket I would put us into as Google.
Sure. So if you wanted to say your name, your organization, and generally what topic you're most interested in. Who wants to start?
I'm Sam. I'm a PhD candidate in Indiana University, and I work with coastal degradation, so like land use, land cover mapping. Yeah.
Awesome.
US Forest Service, Cars Tennyson, geospatial analysis.
I'm Josh Goldstein. I'm also with the U.S. Forest Service, and we're doing a big project to map the Mekong region of Southeast Asia, so we're going to cover mapping.
I'm Ron Goldblatt. I'm a postdoc at UCSD and work with the World Bank, primarily in urbanization processes.
I'm Michelle Schulmacher. I'm a PhD student at Arizona State University, and I do just land use, land cover change detection, mostly urban.
I'm Ankita Sharma. I'm working with UNDP, and we closely work with the government of India also. So my work involves a lot of geospatial planning, land use, land cover mappings, and most of it impacts the policy making in India.
Great.
Jamin Vanderlick. I'm an assistant professor at Oregon State University in geography. Most of my research deals with remote sensing, algorithm, spatial statistical development for human displacement, violent conflict, environmental change.
Name's Cal Markert. I work with the NASA Severe program in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm in the capacity building realm, so my main focus is to help support others in learning how to use remote sensing technologies and to create impact on the ground in developing regions.
Named Rasha Al-Qadiri. I'm an assistant professor at Middle Tennessee State University, and my research field is hydrology and water-driven hazards.
My name is Mike Mangiante. I work with the Office of Research and Development at the EPA. I'm a geospatial specialist for a whole bunch of different stuff, but I primarily at the moment work on mapping distributed energy for solar resources.
I'm Alfonso Torres. I am with the AGIR UAP program at Utah State University. My goal is to provide a seamless integration of drone data and Landsat.
My name is Amintas Brandão. I'm a PhD student at UW Madison and a researcher at Amazon. My focus is land change modeling in Brazil, mostly associated with the soy and the cattle sectors.
Hi, my name is John. I work for the World Bank, and what I do is I provide geospatial analysis to assess environmental and social risk associated with the World Bank lending project.
Matthew Hume, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, open source analyst. Most of my work in Earth Engine has been food security and sort of mapping out urban extent and growth.
I'm Catherine Murtis. I'm a postdoc at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute, and most of my research is on animal movement ecology and modeling spatial distribution of biodiversity in particular species, but we also work with local nonprofits and try to get them good spatial information for our policy making.
Hello, I'm Lydia Pfizer, working at FAO in Rome. We work on water productivity and let's say general water use in agriculture. And our target is usually decision makers.
Cool.
So I want to dig further now into that second question. Who is your audience? Because it seems like there's a lot of common, but some very different too. Like policymakers, decision makers. How many feel that's your primary audience? Okay, 50%. Surprising. Everyone else, who's your audience?
Other researchers?
Yeah.
I'd like to say too, within Severe, it's not just trying to stop at the stakeholders or the decision making. We want to go one step further and impact the beneficiaries. Like, so if you make a decision at an institution level, how does that influence the people on the ground?
Okay.
Also the general public. General public audience especially.
And given that I work for a higher education institution, my audience is also students that usually tend to work in different sectors.
Yeah, I mean, this can be thought about in many different ways, and each organization, each project's going to have a different bent on it, but these are the sort of big buckets that are sort of useful for thinking about how you might approach these things. So education, either the formal education space, affecting researchers and students, or the educating the public space, two different takes on education. The advocacy space, whether it's nonprofits or others who are trying to advocate for change of some sort. And then decision makers, how do you inform decision makers, either convince them to or assist them in making better decisions? And how you approach
Know your
those
audience.
things. Yes, know
Tailor
your
your
audience.
message to your audience.
So, in the education space, if you're looking at formal education, you might focus on getting your data out through academic publications. You might create something to accompany those where people can view and share and explore the data. You might even want to make it interactive. Let people, query it in certain ways, or say, I want to see it with this parameter changed and see what the results are. That's starting to become possible now with some of the tools.
You might also encourage through various means subsequent researchers to build on your research. So maybe you release the output of your research as an open data set with a permissive license that encourages and provides clarity around the terms under which other researchers can use what you've already done and continue the work. A great example of that is the Hansen Global Forest Change dataset, which was released in a very public, accessible, and clear license manner with a CC BY license, interactive map application. And you've seen many things built on top of that because of it.
I think licensing is something we need to add to the slide deck into this class. We talked about that the first time we talked this morning, and meant to do that. Licensing is a big part of this, like deciding how you want to release your data. Do you want to, are you able to make it public? Do the sources allow that? And if so, what is the best license to make sure that your rights are protected, but also it generates as much positive benefit through use by others as possible? So if people have questions about that, we can talk about that later as well. So moving on, advocacy, you might do a lot of the same things as with education. You want people to be able to view and share the data. You might do publications, but you might also be going for media attention. Maybe you want to make it something that the news will pick up. You might want to put it in a form where the general public can easily understand or access or use it through engaging visuals or other things like that. If you're going for decision makers, you might take a different tack, and some of these things might become more or less important. Again, publication, data exploration, things like that. So you've done your analysis. What can you do with your results to get this impact? We've split this up in a couple ways. The first split is Chris is going to talk about some of the options for sharing through Earth Engine. So if your audience is other Earth Engine users, say other researchers, colleagues, researchers at other institutions, there are a bunch of options for sharing things right in Earth Engine that are really straightforward and easy. Then there is all of the options for exporting your data and getting it out, because the number of people who are Earth Engine users is probably very limited. And unless that's your specific audience, you're going to want to get your data out of Earth Engine and share it in some other way. So we're going to talk about exporting data, all the various options for that, and then tools to share and publish your data through. Some of them Google tools like Earth and Maps and some others, and we'll mention some third-party tools as well. So that's the general structure, and I'll let Chris get started with sharing things through Earth Engine, and we'll get into exporting stuff like that.
Do you want to advance or should I?
Either way. Is that good?
Just, yeah, that works.
Great.
Water bottles I have around me. Okay, so one, I'm going to go rather fast because there is an entire course devoted to this called Import, Export, Render. We have it again tomorrow. If you'd like to take that, we can go a lot deeper into the various formats. There's also a course for much of what Christiaan is talking about after this. So we wanted this to be like a survey, not a deep dive on any of them. Okay, so one thing I wanted to sort of raise is that maybe the thing that the output of your research is not a data set, it could be a script, right? So like that, when we're talking about letting other researchers use it, it might not be some pile of geotiffs somewhere. It could just be like an openly licensed search script on GitHub or something. Your algorithm, whatever. But clarity around use of that makes it easier for people to use. So here I made this fun vector data set that says Google, made out of polygons, and I wanted to share it with a friend. So I'm going to click that get link button really quickly. Who here has ever pressed that get link button? Good. Boom, it creates this new URL that links to that particular location in the map with the script at that point in time. So when I open it up in a new tab, it opens it up like that. Okay, this get link is actually quite powerful. It's powerful for when you're debugging scripts and you ask someone for help, you can literally replicate exactly what you're seeing at that point. It's also useful for collaborating with coworkers or colleagues, or something like this, where the script contains a user interface recipe, right? So we're using the user interface API here to create 4 different maps, all within the code editor. So it's no longer that single map. We're starting to build out an interface to aid in our analysis. So it's not a final product, but it is something that you can share with coworkers or colleagues, and you can use as part of your analysis to do it faster or otherwise better.
I wanted to highlight something about the link sharing. What Chris said was it's a snapshot of your current script. So if you get that link, you share it with somebody, then you go and you make some more changes to your script, they're not going to see those changes. It's a snapshot of when you click that get link button, right? Mm-hmm. That's important.
It's also important that they need Earth Engine access,
yes, but
to be able to access that script.
That makes it a nice tool for yourself as well to sort of save your progress, maybe at the end of every day or something like that as you develop an algorithm. It also saves things like the current map view window and things like that. So just so you know that's some features of that link sharing.
Do those links have some sort of lifespan associated with them?
I think they're safe.
You should assume they're permanent.
Whatever the lifespan of Earth Engine ends up being is.
So they don't just drop off to
Say that the day we're recording the session. Yeah, and so the user interface API is quite powerful for building out interfaces more complex than the one we're showing here. For example, we have example ones that just make it easy to browse through the Landsat collection. I forked that and made one to browse the Sentinel-2 collection. So now I say like, oh, give me only 2017 images, filter to this bounds, and then all of a sudden I have access to the scene IDs to work with just specific images. So think of the user interface API as a tool to make it easier for you to do your work and for you to engage with others also doing similar work. It's not an end, it's not a public thing for at the end though. Like sharing that link with someone without Earth Engine, they're not gonna be able to access it. We do have options for that use case though. Okay, so the core export options here: chart, image, Earth Engine asset, table, video, and map. I'm gonna walk quickly through them. Images, who here has ever exported an image from Earth Engine? Okay, that is a solid number. I'm going to fly through this. Main thing, exporting it. If you want it to look as it is in your map in the actual code editor, you want to throw on this .visualize method, and what you export will actually look like what's displayed on the map, rather than displaying it in the native bit depth. Okay. Second thing, oh, and then it's a geotip that's compatible with your standard desktop GIS software. Okay, so one example of an Earth Engine user who exported an image is the Berliner Morgenpost. It's a pretty big newspaper in Berlin, Germany, and they had this research question, which was, all of the cities in Germany are claiming that they're the greenest. We want to know which one's actually the greenest. So they developed a methodology, consulted with scientists, and like to confirm that it was a good methodology, and ultimately came out with this ranking of all the cities. And so within Earth Engine, after they had run the analysis, they exported a geotiff of the whole city that sort of looked like this, where it's showing the green areas as green and everywhere else is black. And then, so they exported a geotiff, but what do you see here? This made it onto the front page of the Berliner Morgenpost, so it then became something in print. So it went geotiff to print. They also uploaded the geotiff to Mapbox and rendered it as a set of static map tiles for an interactive web application. So from that one geotiff, they have like multiple different outputs, and this got a lot of coverage in Germany because it sort of settled that long-term debate about how the cities were green. And there's actually a data scientist currently working on applying this to a larger region.
So that was Berlin, right?
Is the answer Berlin?
I don't remember.
There is.
I want to say
It was not Berlin, that one.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
I don't think it was Berlin. Oh, wait. Oh, that's not the article. Not sure. When Christian, when I hand over to Christian, I'll get it.
I have a quick question about the visualize. When you do the visualize, does it just get a 8-bit 0 to 255 kind of image? And so, okay, yeah.
RGB importantly.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah,
the only reason you would want to do that is if
you just want to visualize.
You want it looking like what you're seeing.
Yeah. I had a question on the tiling. So when I tried to export an image before, this is like the only time I've had the issue, but when I imported into QGIS, it had like a distinct line, like you could see where the tiles were within the image, and I was trying to export just the raw data. And so have you guys ever?
One image, or you
Yeah, just one image. I'll see if I could replicate it and show you guys.
Yeah, or what? Yeah, that shouldn't happen.
Okay.
So I'm curious if it is. All right, export video. Exporting video, I'm a big fan of exporting video from Earth Engine. I do it all the time. It's a great way to get a very quick visual understanding of the contents of a collection. So like an image collection. I want to know where are the clouds on a given day over the course of the year. So export all the MODIS images for a given year into a video, and you can set a high frame rate, and you can pretty quickly say like, oh look, there are never clouds there, or oh look, there are always clouds there. Or wow, the top of the Earth is dark for most of the year because of where the satellite is. And what does this mean? You take an image collection, we assume it's ordered. Each one of those images then becomes a frame in the video sequence, and we render out and we export it into a single file, an MP4 video. That's actually what more or less what time lapse is. It's just about 50 million videos pyramided out. But yeah, and it's getting a little bit of a delay on here, but these are just some particular areas of that are not loading at all.
Is it? It's doing it properly on here. It's the.
What's the?
It's the projection. Hold on. Do you know how to optimize for video? No, it's in here.
Oh.
There's a way to present with video optimization.
Oh, let's just change the bandwidth.
I have a quick question about the FPS. If the FPS is 0.1,
you can change it.
If it's 0.1, does that mean an image stays for 10 seconds? A single image of the collection will stay for 10 seconds. Because when it reaches 1, that means 1 frame has completed the image.
Frames per second, 10 is 10 frames per second. That would.
So 0.1 means that same image will stay for 10 seconds.
It should be, yes.
Okay.
It's a little better.
Where's the, did you change the bandwidth?
I didn't. No, it's not the bandwidth. There's actually an optimized for video setting or something. But
really?
Yeah, you have to restart it, so I don't want to do that.
Okay. I don't. It's open twice now. All right, so we're gonna go quickly through these because it's just a mine that makes you kind of feel like an ant. This is a mine in Chile that, it's a shame, it doesn't really work. But what you're looking at here are actually not videos, they're GIFs because it's a presentation and I didn't want to have to click play on any of them. GIF auto plays. Again, something for knowing the audience and when you want to convey things like this. GIFs are really effective and it's like not an opt-in. Whereas a video, you have to press play, so it's sort of opt-in. Here, you don't have a choice but to see the video play.
How do you do that?
Actually, how do I do that? There's a fun slide here. I'm a big fan of the third-party open source ffmpeg. It's a free software library online, and it'll just convert it to a GIF pretty simply. You can also use it, let's say you wanted to export all the Landsat images over a particular area, right? You can make n number of image exports, or you can make one video export, and then you have this, where each frame in that corresponds to a Landsat image in that collection. So it's another way to get the images out of Earth Engine, depending on what you're ultimately using. This is how, for each time-lapse video, right? Sometimes I just want an image. I want to know, I just want the 1984 image or something. With ffmpeg, you can just assign a file name, or you can assign a label onto the image based on its position within the video sequence. So if we go back to here, the labels you see here, you can't actually add in Earth Engine. We don't permit text labels. It's a security thing. It's not our, but it's really easy to add them with ffmpeg outside of Earth Engine. So just export it. If you're not sure what the specific image in the sequence is, you can always export the metadata associated with the collection as a feature collection. So you could grab like the scene ID and then just download that and use that for labeling. I don't know how that's going to play. Oh, kind of. All right. Okay. You can also export map tiles third time doing this. I don't know if I already talked about it in here, did I?
Don't think so.
No, okay.
And I'll talk about it a little bit more later on.
Okay, so web map or map tiles are fast, pretty compatible across almost all devices relatively easily. They're fast because to make this image of the world, there are really, 16 really tiny images that are being requested. So it's gonna be fast. And when you export map tiles from Earth Engine, they are compatible with they're compatible with Leaflet. If you want to use Leaflet, they're compatible with Mapbox tiles, Google Maps API. They're a standard spec, so you can make your, so the result is compatible and you can layer it with other maps. Yeah. So just for example, to prove that point, I can show you here.
If you're planning to put your raster data on a map on a website, export to map generates the whole set of different resolution tiles that are ready to go with Google Maps or any of the other map APIs.
Right, and so here, it actually even generates an HTML file for you, so you don't even have to make the Google Maps API.
So you have the sample code ready to drop into any other.
Yeah, but so this is just one map layer I exported, and you can see it here with Google Maps underneath it. And then you can also see here that it's compatible with Leaflet, and it's on top of OpenStreetMap with, is
it creating
not very much
different zoom level PNG files for each zoom level?
Yeah, so
can I download those
pre-generates-
zoom level files?
It pre-generates all of those different zoom levels.
Okay.
And it generates the entire folder structure of all the zoom levels, all the tiles at all levels.
Okay.
Within your area of interest, and they all get pushed to cloud storage.
So it is possible to move those to a different service if you need it. Okay.
Exactly.
To be viewable in the Google Maps, does it have to be an RGB image, or can it be a image with all the metadata attached still?
Has to be the visualized RGB
image. Visualized RGB. You can, or it can be grayscale.
Yeah.
But you can have all of that.
You can't throw a 10-band image in there or something.
Unfortunately, no.
Google Maps has no idea what to do with that. The only thing it knows how to do is take a PNG, a JPEG, or a GIF and lay it on the map with whatever RGB it.
If you want to expose that through map, you're better off using App Engine and building a.
Yeah, using the Earth Engine API to make that accessible.
Right. I think this goes to you now.
Sure. One of the early examples of tile export before it was actually available to Earth Engine users was one of our early projects that I'm sure you've all heard about at this point is the Hansen forest data. And when they published that, we were sort of new to this, and we were like, well, we want to release the data with the academic paper that's coming out, and we need a website to make it easy for people to view it and to zoom in on it and explore it in all of its great resolution and see all the different years and all the different versions of it, the gain, the loss,
This was actually for the paper review before it was even published, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that's right. This went to the reviewers before the paper came out. And
because it was a global data set that you had to sort of explore to understand the.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just showed the global map, you'd be like, oh, well, that's pretty. But until you zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and keep seeing the detail improve,
right.
You don't really get how impressive that was. So we did a manual export of these tiles, but it produced exactly the same map tiles, and that inspired us to add this feature so that anybody can now export a set of map tiles and drop it into a Maps application like this.
But they also make it extremely easy to download the geotip data as well. So it's just a button, license is clear, data provenance is clear as well. There's a point of contact.
The code isn't shared though. Right?
I don't know that.
The algorithm, Hansen's code, I don't think so. Yeah. But the results are.
But right? So you can also export tables. It's not always the case that the result of your analysis is going to be an image or a video or anything that even looks like an image. It could be just a table. It could be a CSV file without even geometry. It's up to you, but we got you covered with that in exports. And oh, that's really delayed.
Come on. What the heck? All right.
So you can also, we don't, it's good now.
Sorry.
While a chart might not seem like a typical format you can export into, I consider it one of those because it can be, depending on your audience, it can be exactly the result you need to convey the point. So this is not a very compelling or significant chart. It's just meant to show you. So I've made this chart that's showing me these data points across images in a stack. It's a small chart displayed in the code editor. Pay attention to this nice little jump out button, right? So when you click that, you're gonna get a full page version of that chart, and from which you can download a CSV of the data points used to generate the chart. You can download the chart as an SVG, which is a vector graphic, so you can edit it in a third-party vector editing software, or you can download a PNG, or of course just take a screenshot. So the point here is, depending on the audience, think about charts, maps, whatever, but the data is there and the formats are there as well.
Cool. So Chris talked about how to share things within Earth Engine, your links, your UIs you might build within the code editor. Talked about exporting images and tiles and charts and videos and everything else. So now that you've exported something, what do? How do we get that out? So we have a bunch of publishing tools we're going to talk through. Some of these are Google tools. I need to update this list. This is from previous versions of this class when we talked about some other things, but talk about some Google tools. We'll talk about some third-party options. We'll spend most of the time talking about Google Maps API and Google Earth, but we'll also touch on the other ones there. Do I cover those? Yeah, I do. Okay. All right, so that's a summary, but I'll get into each one right here. So Google Maps API is the tool you can use if you're building a website and you want to put a Google map on it and put some data layers on that map and share it. You can have a really simple map with one layer on it that people can zoom in on, or you can have a very complex map with multiple layers and various tools to turn them on and off, and knobs and dials to do whatever you want to program up behind your page. There are APIs for the web. There's the common JavaScript API that I have been teaching the API sessions on, and we'll have one more of those again tomorrow, my first Google Maps API. There are equivalents for people developing Android and iOS apps, and then there are a bunch of web services like the geocoding API and a bunch of associated APIs that work with the mapping APIs. More information than you will ever want to know about it is at the developers documentation page there. But generally, if you're building a website, you want to map on it, and you want to use the sort of Google Maps interface that so many people are familiar with. This is how you or your web developer can do it. Let's talk about Google Earth a bit. We just came out with a new version of Google Earth. Hard to believe it's already been 2 months. It feels like it was last week.
We realized that we didn't just come out with it.
Yeah,
2 months ago.
I have to stop saying just. So let's see. Well, you all know the classic or old Google Earth, as we like to call it. Classic. which is a downloadable program. You have to install it on your computer. And
Is EC an internal version or
EC
is enterprise?
is an enterprise client. It just lets me add different databases than the default imagery database. But it's essentially Google Earth Pro for all intents and purposes.
Sure.
And in case you don't know, Google Earth Pro is now free as of about a year ago. So definitely get that because it's got a lot of extra tools. Like for you guys will be most interested in all the import options. You can import lots of different things from shape files to geotiffs to
GPS files. GPS.
Yeah, I think the free version lets you do GPS, but or GPX files,
yeah.
But lots of other common geodata formats that you can import. It'll even do cool stuff like if you have a big geotiff that's too big to sort of render in one piece, it'll ask you if you want to downscale it or crop it or generate a super overlay like that resolution tree. It'll do that for you.
Those are geocodes.
Sorry?
It also geocodes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we teach entire classes on Google Earth on how to use all the drawing tools. Gosh, the resolution of the screen is all messed up. Super tiny, sorry. But you can do basic drawing stuff right in Google Earth. If you want to do sort of KML development through other means, you can create really fancy visualizations with fancy info balloons, whole little web pages that tell your story and fly you around and create tours and do all sorts of stuff. That's for other classes. One thing a lot of people don't realize that we have historical imagery. If you click the little clock icon in there, you can go all the way back in time. Satellite imagery from 1938.
Not updated on our side.
Probably aerial imagery from before World War II. Pretty
No,
amazing.
we don't see, like, we're still really far.
Oh, hey, look at that. You
We
guys
can
aren't
see it
seeing-
on the time.
Yeah, you can see it right now. Well, that's a bummer. Okay. Well, let me tell you about it then. Let's switch back to the presentation here. Yeah, so Google Earth has been used for storytelling for a long time. People have been creating overlays of data, whether it's vector or raster, and using it in presentations. It's a great tool to sort of show your data off and as you're presenting it, or by making it available for anybody to download. And it lets you create that storytelling around the data as well. The new Google Earth is here, and this, as you might see, is right in my browser. It's a Chrome app, and we hope that in the next year or two, the technology will come to the other browsers so that we can let it run in Firefox and others as well. But for now, it's just a Chrome app.
Is
Still,
this WebGL? Is this WebGL?
WebGL also native client. So it's running a bunch of code that's not JavaScript, but it's natively.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we can do pretty powerful stuff in the browser now with this. And people are very excited, especially educators, because there are so many Chromebooks in classrooms now. They're a great classroom tool, but the biggest complaint was always that they couldn't use Google Earth on the Chromebooks. Well, now they can. So that's exciting for lots of reasons. The other so there's a lot of nice stuff about new Google Earth. There are a lot of things from the old version that are not in here yet. We don't do touring, we don't do time, we don't have historical imagery. There's a bunch of KML stuff that isn't supported yet. A bunch of things
But
that
it runs in the browser, isn't that awesome?
Yes. That said, we're working on a lot of that stuff. But we have also done some new things in here around storytelling. And we have this new Voyager feature that's sort of like a magazine inside Google Earth. And this content updates weekly or sometimes daily, and lets you explore all sorts of interesting places around the world. If you have ever done any KML development for Google Earth, you may wonder how we did this. This is a full screen balloon, which is pretty cool. So in the old Google Earth, you could have little info balloons that came up, and they were always sort of attached to the map, and whenever you move the map, they disappear.
Right.
Well, that's a full screen balloon that you can take up the whole screen and give me a splash page. This is a panel balloon, which is persistent. I can interact with the map, and that balloon sticks around, so it's a great place to have contextual information or legends or things like that. And it lets me create some really neat storytelling experiences where I can have, go previous, next. Oops, it's covered up by my hangout stuff there, but I've got, you can see the previous button right there. There's the next button as well. So I can, we can do some really neat storytelling in here, and we're really trying to make the storytelling features in New Earth very, very powerful, and working on content creation to help you create stories like this. So you can imagine taking, some global or regional data set that you've produced in Earth Engine, overlaying it in Google Earth, and then creating a story like this that walks people through and shows them, here are the interesting things about my data. Here are the places that you should look at to see, these aspects of it, and really explain what's going on in your data and tell those stories to cause your impact for the educators or the decision makers or whoever you're trying to reach. So,
then you share it with the Telegram icon there.
Sorry?
There's like a Telegram app icon, like this one.
Mail or contact?
Oh, no, that's the fly here button.
All right.
So, if I'm here and I click that icon, it flies to that location. So, if I've flown somewhere else in the map, that lets me. That's a paper airplane.
All right.
But interesting that that's what you thought. We're still figuring out what the right way to do those things is.
I thought it was shared.
Yeah, there are share
it's
buttons.
email,
There's another cool. You can do the postcards.
So whenever I'm uploading raster on Google Earth, it's basically putting up PNG tiles in the back end, and then it's just pulling it up, right?
Maybe PNG, GIF, or JPEG,
but Google Earth Enterprise is now free, right? It's open source now.
Yes.
So in theory, if you have all the tiles at different zoom levels, you can create your own Google Earth and distribute it, right?
So Earth Enterprise is sort of a version of processing and serving software that we use on our backend. So it'll actually let you take your high-res GeoTIFF, it'll do the tiling for you, it'll host it, but that's
outside of the scope of this
course. That's far outside the scope of this course. That's also really designed for people with very large data collections for internal use, like
I see.
Big companies or
but it's
government
open.
Agencies.
No,
it is, yeah. You could
it's open
use
source.
it.
Okay.
Yes. But it's not that useful for public publishing because you need the EC client to access your database instead of Google's default database, right? So I would put that pretty low on the list of things to consider for most of the applications in this room.
Okay.
So here's an example of a story with some image overlays. These happen to be artworks from this Argentinian artist who does pretty colorizations of Earth imagery. But you can see how you can overlay some data, right, and then tell a story about it. And that's I'm sorry, I'm doing all these awesome flights around and looking at these pretty colors, and you guys aren't seeing any of it. Anyway, it's moving. Well, let me get back to the presentation since that's not working very well. So Google Earth, we have some new storytelling tools in the new version and are working on making it easier to tell stories in there. So right now, if you want to get your raster data out of Earth Engine into Google Earth, what you need to do is export a GeoTIFF and then somehow turn it into this KML super overlay, which is the Google Earth equivalent of the map tiles.
And didn't we just say that Google Earth Pro will do that for you?
Yeah, so up to certain sizes, Google Earth Pro will take a large GeoTIFF and create the super overlay for you. They're also third-party tools, GDAL tools and things like that will do it for you. So there are tools out there. Hopefully that'll keep getting easier. We're also looking at how to more directly connect Earth Engine and Google Earth in the future to make it very easy to sort of publish your data if you want to.
Meaning that we can now create our own Voyager thing?
So Voyager right now is curated by us and is not open to submissions, but maybe someday in the future. Right now we're working with a select group of partners to create the Voyager content, but we are interested in highlighting all sorts of stories in there in the future. So.
Yeah, but I mean, apart from having it available on Google Earth, on the web, it would be really nice to have the possibility to create your own.
Yes, we.
Example.
Sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah. Yes, we definitely want you to be able to create Voyager-like stories that you can share with on your website or with whoever you want to, and maybe eventually submit to Voyager for inclusion there if they really
sort of Tor Builder would help with now.
Yeah, it's sort of the same concept, right?
With now, like for now, is that going to be the best?
Tor Builder. I would only recommend that for a few use cases, because it's not. Yeah, it's not do that. Okay. Google Crisis Map is not just for crises. It's a map mashup tool. It lets you quickly create a map with a bunch of layers on it without having to do all of that coding of the Google Maps API. Our crisis response team built this a number of years ago because every time there was a big disaster, we would put up a website with a bunch of information on it, including a map, and every time we wanted to add another layer to the map or edit something, a description of one of those layers, we would have to go into the JavaScript code on the web page and edit it and submit it through code review and blah, 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 and it would take forever. It was not a good process. So we built this tool that gives us a user interface where we can log in, create a map, add a bunch of layers, point them at data sets that are hosted somewhere on the web. As long as they're public, publicly accessible, it works. And we can add map tile layers, we can add KML layers, we can add fusion tables, there's a whole list of interesting formats that it supports, also the web-friendly GL formats. And it's a really quick and easy way to make a map mashup, and you combine a bunch of layers into a map that you can easily publish. If you go to the first link there, that's sort of the crisis response team's basic map where they have their public alerts data and stuff like that. So that's Crisis Map. But you can also go to the second link. That's a hosted version of it where anybody can log in with their Gmail address, create a new map, start adding layers to it, and publish it. Or if you're really ambitious, you can go to GitHub and get the open source code and put it up on your own App Engine instance and customize it at will. Back to this Hansen Forest Data site again, that is Google Crisis Map, is the code that's producing that. It's an old version of the code before they changed the user interface around a bit, but that's a Google Crisis Map. We added a title and a description, and we added a bunch of layers. And some of those layers are in drop-down folders and options like that, but once that data was ready, I can create that map in 15 minutes and publish it. It's really easy, no coding required. Right? So that's an interesting tool if you want a quick and dirty map to publish without having to do much coding. This is a link to that one. I might have mentioned fusion tables. This is, most of you are probably familiar with fusion tables as the older way to get vector data into Earth Engine. You upload your KML file to fusion tables, and then you can access it through Earth Engine. Fusion tables is also great for publishing. Especially journalists seem to love it because it's super easy to upload a spreadsheet or some other tabular data and quickly map it and publish a map. Yep, geocode if necessary, or if you say have a table of data about all the countries of the world, you can join that with an existing public country borders data set and quickly make a map of whatever your attributes are for those those features. So something to consider again for sort of quick and dirty maps. If you want to publish a couple layers, you can put them into Fusion tables and get them up. You can also use Fusion tables to host data for the Maps API. So Fusion tables has its own API that lets you query things, and Google Maps API has a way to pull in the maps from Fusion tables. And it will pre-render on the server, so you don't have to worry about data size and KML file size and all that stuff. It generates all the tiles for you on the fly. So you can point your Google Maps API at one or more Fusion tables, and you can even use some of the Fusion tables API to say, I want to filter this Fusion table by attribute X. So that's pretty powerful. All right, and diving deeper into the sort of more power user tools, if you're thinking about setting up a website with maps or data or whatever on it, and you want a place to host that is very robust or takes advantage of Google's infrastructure and scalability, then App Engine is a really good option. It's a place for hosting web applications. It's not like a sort of bare bones web server. It's more an environment where you actually build the application using App Engine's APIs. And what it gets you is that you don't have to worry about those servers at all. You don't have to worry about maintaining hardware or the sort of stack of software on the servers. You don't have to worry about scalability, because if this week you've got 5 users a day, great. You're under the free limits, way under. If next week you hit the front page of the New York Times and you get 5 million users on your website, App Engine automatically scales. You go from 1 server to 100 servers, and it's all seamless. You don't have to do anything. It just works. So it's really nice for building scalable web applications. We use it, that's why we use it as the hosting for crisis map, because crises are very spiky user traffic events, right? Anyway.
For a while, you actually had to access like the code editor, the Earth Engine code editor was using an App Engine URL, right?
Yes.
Where's the .app spot?
Was it?
App spot.
In the very early days.
Up until maybe a year ago.
It is E-dash.
That's right.
E-dash.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So the Earth Engine code interface was built on App Engine as well. Anyway, powerful hosting platform if you're building a fancy web app with maps or whatever. A bunch of the examples that we'll show use it. And I said I'd mention, there's a whole bunch of Google tools you can consider, third-party tools. We go till 4:30, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yes. Okay. Bunch of third-party tools. Leaflet is sort of like an open source or another option for Maps API. Lets you publish maps online. CartoDB, Mapbox, ArcGIS Online, all sort of online map publishing and data hosting tools. So they'll sort of do the Maps API and the Fusion table side of things for you, if you want to think about it that way. GitHub is, if you have vector data, you want a really quick and dirty way of getting it online and just sharing it in the GitHub environment. If you're sharing it with code type people and that you like versioning, and if you put it in GeoJSON format, it will automatically give you a map. And then, of course, you have your desktop GIS tools like QGIS, SmartGIS. You can do all of the cartography and other things you can do with those. So let's walk through a few examples quick, many of which you've already seen, but just talk about what tools they used, right, of all the stuff that we've talked about. So Global Forest Watch, I'm sure you've seen this. It includes a bunch of data sets, including the Anson Forest data and others. And
Who here has never seen this?
okay, if you knew for a few people, that's
Just
fine.
checking assumptions.
Yep. Good call. So this is hosted on App Engine, this entire app. And I think I'm wrong about it using the Google Maps API. This one's actually built on CartoDB as the mapping interface. But it does use, I believe, Google Maps as the base map behind it. Looks like it.
Yeah.
That said, they used raster tile export for this and exported their tile sets. And this one has been very high impact. So you go to globalforestwatch.org, you can go to their interactive map. And this one actually does some other interesting things. More than just getting the data sets out there. You know, I can go in here and it, by default, it shows tiles living, here we go. Shows the tree cover loss in the sort of pink magenta color, the tree cover gain in the blue color, not much of it there. And those, I can turn on tree cover, oops. There we go. So you can see all the different layers I can turn on here. I can also do some querying. Let's say I want some data on this area. I just drew a rectangle there. What it's doing here is it has sent that rectangle to the code running on App Engine, which puts it into an Earth Engine query. Using Earth Engine's Python API, it's reaching into Earth Engine saying, grab these data sets in this area, run this analysis algorithm, and spit back the results back to the App Engine app. That renders it back out into this page right here. And so these are live, instant results for that rectangle that I just drew by hand. And here, 5.9 million hectares, 367,000 hectares of loss, 100,000 hectares of gain. My tree cover. So that's a pretty powerful example of the kinds of things you can do combining a bunch of these tools.
How does it control for memory error if the user draws a large rectangle?
I think it gives you an error message. I forget.
There wouldn't necessarily be a memory error. If you're drawing a large polygon, the scale at which you're doing the computation is going to be different.
It's true.
Right,
Yeah,
so
probably
should
do
never be.
Yeah.
Does it authenticate?
And it's sampling, like it says it right here, it's sampling.
If it's reaching back to Earth Engine, who's it?
They have a service account that's registered with Earth Engine.
I was just curious what
and
area
that-
used to have user.
Their App Engine app
Is it totally?
accesses
the
Earth
area
Engine
pixel
through
like
that account.
Okay.
get area.
So the
select
user,
area.
Oh, that counts as an area.
Yeah, right. This is for public
And that
users who
is
know nothing about Earth
projection
Engine.
specific.
You know.
So
The only reason they might know about Earth
Yeah,
Engine because it's certainly powered by Earth Engine down here, but they don't have to know anything about Earth Engine or use this. It does it all in the back end. All right.
So how many APIs are these websites using? Okay, Apps API.
Maps API, CartoDB, Earth Engine API, yeah, it's using a lot of stuff in there, but they've wired it all up. And, this has been a very high impact site, ton of news articles, a bunch of, policy decisions in various parts of the world that at least partially.
Government's using it, I think, in an operational capacity.
Yep, some governments have stated they're using it operationally. And, some policy changes have come about that are at least partially attributable to these data sets being made available in an easy to access way. All right. Another example, some similar stuff is Map of Life. They actually use App Engine as well and Maps API. These guys, if I remember correctly, you used to get those books about different animals and they'd have this sort of shape drawn on the map of, this animal lives here, this giant block that was not detailed at all. Like, well, I know the animal lives in that area, but it probably doesn't live on the mountaintop in the middle of that area, right? These guys went in and made much more detailed range maps by using App Engine to sort of say, well, yeah, the animal lives within this area, but only between these elevations and only in these land use types and things like that. So they could refine those maps, and they've made them all available through this interface. So again, publishing their Earth Engine output through these tools. This one I think we talked about a little bit. Did we in this session? Too many sessions. I can't keep it straight.
I can tell you if we did.
Global Surface Water Explorer. This is from the European Commission Joint Research Center. Recently came out with this. It has probably been mentioned in other sessions of the conference, but they wanted to get their surface water results, global surface water analysis. They wanted to get it out in a number of ways. They wanted, like Hansen did, they wanted a site to make the data accessible for their academic papers that they initially published. And they also wanted to make it accessible for the governments that they represent and who they're working for. And they wanted to make it easy for the public to access. So they built this site that lets them do all of those things. Again, using App Engine to run the app, using the Maps API as the mapping interface, tile exports, and the same dynamic Earth Engine queries.
Through an App Engine service account.
So here's their site. Oops.
So if I think of this as a flowchart, right, you need a GCS bucket to first export all the map tiles into the GCS bucket, and then only can I render it somewhere like an app spot, like the App Engine, the way it's being rendered on this website, right?
No, it's pulling directly from
the GCS bucket.
Yeah, for the map tiles.
Okay. But I can have a connector that connects to an external service, like a FTP or something else. Okay.
For what?
Just to export the tiles out. If I want
So
to
you can only export them to GCS. You would have to push them there and then pull them down to your other service.
Okay.
In Earth Engine, the export will put them on GCS.
Right.
And then you can do whatever you want with them.
Right.
You can leave them there and access them directly from there, or you can move them to wherever.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, so this one, you click on the map and it'll do one of these Earth Engine queries and give you temporal profiles of surface water at that location over time. Looks like that. Ooh. All right, enough of this. And we talked about this one already. Crisis map, App Engine, tile export. So what time is it? We have 10 minutes left.
I think we should.
Yeah,
I'm
going to talk through this. I'm not going to demo it. But if you want to, we'll get this prezo posted. There's some sample code here. This is Earth Engine code that pulls in the basic NDVI example from the sample scripts and does a map tile export. So this will export them to my cloud storage bucket. You'll have to put your own cloud storage bucket in there to make it work.
Cloud storage.
Yeah, it's easy to set up.
So there is a free tier.
There you go.
No, sorry. So it's not the drive that I need.
I don't think you can export tiles to drive because
right. We didn't think you would want to.
Yeah,
because it could be millions.
It becomes very messy on Google Drive to deal with.
Buckets are free.
Yeah, buckets are free.
Buckets are not free.
Yeah.
Not free. Cost money. They're cloud services.
But there's
a
up
free
to a
tier.
I think it's
Yes.
five years, so I'm not
Up
sure.
to a certain amount of data in the bucket is free.
Yeah, it's regional
Setting up an
storage.
empty bucket is free.
All right.
You need a credit
But
card.
you do need to
build it,
enable
but you won't
billing
get
on the
billed.
account
Yes,
first.
that's right. You do need to put in a credit card number so that if you add
It's gotta be someone.
too much data
Maybe that's
or
happened.
you end up sending a lot of traffic to it,
Yeah.
then
You
they
get
will
charged.
charge you.
So
we do have cloud credits.
Yes, if you're a nonprofit, organization, we do have a program that can get you free credits to Google Cloud services.
Without size.
It's more, I
large
think it's
size.
like you tell us what you need, kind of.
Yeah, we'll give you an appropriate
Limits.
amount of credits, and if you burn through them, then you start paying back credits. Yes.
So assuming you have a cloud account set up with your Google account, can you dynamically create a bucket to then dump stuff from Earth Engine, or do you have to preemptively make the bucket to stash stuff?
I'm not sure. I think you have to
have
preemptively set up a bucket.
Okay, so
yeah.
the bucket needs to be built first, then you can fill it. You
Yeah,
can't
and
just say
but
make
you
a bucket
can
and fill it.
create the bucket by going into the console, and you have to create a project, and
It's like an S3
it's like
bucket,
a
right?
bunch of you push like 5 buttons and you're done.
Yeah, just create, each tile.
Do you know if you have cloud credits for education?
That sounds like a local, is it? Yeah, it's NASA.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You should be able to, I mean, NASA for education.
I don't know.
Well, I
If you
also do like teaching at a university too, so it's just this. I mean, all this stuff, and
I
like
would
to
say
teach
it
on.
doesn't hurt to
Ask-
apply.
Ask John or Emily, they'll know.
Okay.
Okay,
Rally's actually the cloud credits person,
yeah,
right?
but she's not gonna be here tomorrow, so.
Oh, okay, Emily.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you gonna publish this presentation?
Yes, it'll get added to the breakout sessions page. I'm sorry, we.
It should already be there, but.
Yeah, we sent it to Nick this
Oh, but I
morning.
made a bit.ly link.
Oh, okay.
At the beginning, it's just some EE-analysis-impact.
Let me finish going through this real quick. So export to tiles, a NDVI of the Bay Area. I have some sample data. Those of you that took my Maps API course will recognize all this, same data sets. But some, 5 points on the map here, and export those to a KML file, also put them on cloud storage. And then you can get a little bit of code like this. This is a basic HTML web page with a few lines of code for the Maps API. It gets you a map that looks like this. And then 4 lines of code will let you add that KML layer. Another 10 lines of code will let you add a raster overlay. And so now I have this interactive map with a raster data set, the vector data set, all in just a handful of lines of code, right? So very simple, bare bones example, but it gives you an idea of how it works and where you can take it. Oops, that's not supposed to be anymore. Cool. Questions? What do you guys want to do?
Besides apply for cloud credits.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure if you were aware of this, but through Severe Mekong, we were developing some educational workflows to build a app engine application and everything. I can show you that afterwards, but yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know about that.
Building tutorials to teach people how to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Awesome.
Like from the beginning kind of thing.
Sweet. When
So
it's ready, send it to the
Are you in contact with Nick?
conference list.
Yeah.
Nick
So,
definitely
yeah,
knows.
for
If Nick knows about it, then
Okay.
he's the right person to know
Yeah.
about it.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I know a lot of you guys know much or at least some parts of this quite well already, but hopefully it's still gives you some new ideas
So
as
an
well.
education is an angle we did not consider here.
A little bit.
I mean, well, I guess we did kind of, but not as making training materials. We were thinking more of an application.
Is it possible? Sorry.
One question. How we measure the impact?
That is always the big question, is it not? No, that's a very good question, and that's something that I think most organizations struggle with, right? How do you measure impact? It's so dependent on the project and on what
The audience, the
exactly
outcome,
you're
the
trying to do.
stakeholder, all of that.
Google Analytics.
Google Analytics is a great tool. Sometimes you can get a lot of data from it. Sometimes it's not going to provide that much. So it depends on what you have to analyze, right? It can give you data. Sometimes it's easy to get insights out of that data, and sometimes it's not. So, you know, that's always a challenge, and I don't have easy answers. Hopefully, some of these tools can give you, you know, ideas for how you can, new ways to try, and you know.
These are also kind of the kinds of questions that maybe we should encourage more on the developers list, which right now is largely technical support style things, where like I'm trying to do X particular thing for the script, and not a conversation about like just lessons learned or trying like knowledge share about how to do what you do after you have that. I promise Noel won't shut you down if you do that.
Sounds good.
So I think across all our users, or at least all the users on that list, there is a lot of domain-specific knowledge around this.
If we don't get shut down, I like that idea.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for coming. I hope it's useful, and we'll see you tomorrow. Oh, and if you want to dive more into the Maps API stuff, I will be teaching my first Maps API session where you'll get to actually play with some of that code. I'll be teaching that one more time tomorrow. Chris will be teaching the import-export render class again. That's another good follow-up class to this one, if you want to go in that direction. And is Tyler teaching his web applications class again? If not, look it up in the videos.
If not, find it.
Yeah. If not, you'll be able to find it online.
Oh, sorry.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean,